I am a single mother who has been divorced for 11 years. I chose not to remarry for the sake of my children. I now own my own home service company. In the beginning, I was just an ordinary domestic helper. I knew that I had to work hard on my own to change my destiny. In my work, I have honed my skills and service consciousness, while accumulating a wealth of industry experience and contacts. Our team has been recognized by many clients. Our company's services include cleaning services and care for the elderly. My children are very obedient and do well in school, and I feel very satisfied with my life now. If I have any worries in my life, it is that I have a congenital heart disease. In order to avoid heart attacks, I need to have regular medical checkups. One day, one of my employees was injured at work. I immediately drove to the scene. Just as I arrived at the scene, I felt my heart begin to ache and my breathing became unusually difficult. I knew I was having a heart attack. I did my best to stay calm and asked my employee to help me to my seat. My condition became worse and worse, and I felt like my life was slowly passing me by. The employee rushed to call the emergency number. While waiting for the ambulance, I felt my heart pain getting stronger and stronger, and I could no longer control my breathing. In the emergency room, I felt like I was suspended in the air the whole time. The doctors treated me quickly. My family also came to the hospital, and their company gave me great encouragement. I was in a coma before the surgery. When I woke up, I found myself lying in a hospital bed. The doctors told me that they had unblocked the blocked artery and implanted a stent. My heart was well treated and protected. During the rest of my recovery, I rested and rehabilitated as instructed by the doctors. With the help of my doctor, I slowly returned to work and life. I am very grateful to the doctor who gave me my life back. 3 years later, I experienced an incredible event that completely changed the course of my life. God was so partial to me. On the day I was near death, I met Jesus. That afternoon, my son had gone to a classmate's birthday party. I was preparing dinner when I suddenly felt breathless, as if my chest was being squeezed tightly by a large hand. In a panic, I took out my cell phone and called the emergency number. When the operator asked me about my condition, I could no longer make any sound and could only hear my own rapid gasping for breath. I was terrified and knew I was probably going to die. I put one hand over my chest, held the phone tightly with the other, and prayed to God for help. I pleaded with God to take away my pain if I had to leave this world. As I closed my eyes and prepared to accept death, I suddenly felt a surge of power come into my heart. I saw a luminous figure whose presence made me feel calm and at ease. This figure approached me and reached out and gently touched my head. I felt a soft power and my pain disappeared. I saw a man in a long white robe standing in front of me. His smile made me feel incredibly relieved. "My child, don't worry, everything will be fine," he said. The first moment I saw him, I knew that he was Jesus. He has always been by my side to protect me. Jesus put his hand on my shoulder. Suddenly, a tunnel appeared before us. With Jesus' guidance, I entered the tunnel. After entering the tunnel, we began to move at a very fast pace. As we moved forward, I could see the walls and ground around us begin to glow. These glows gave off a soft warmth that made me feel peaceful and relaxed. As we came out of the tunnel, I saw a bright light that shone so brightly. This light radiated divine energy. It was so bright, but I didn't feel uncomfortable looking directly at it. This light radiated a love that I had never experienced before. Then Jesus reviewed my past life. Every second of my life was recorded. I saw one of those scenes. When I first entered the home care industry, I had a very special client. She was an elderly woman of about 70 years old. Her husband had passed away very young. Her son was paralyzed in his lower limbs due to a car accident and needed her care around the clock. I found her to be very lonely. Whenever I worked near her house, I would go to her house to do some housework. I knew that she didn't have much money, so I didn't charge her anything. I also used to bring some food that I made to visit her. She always appreciated the help I gave her. Whenever I went to her house, she always greeted me very happily. She would share her memories and stories. I would also listen to her advice and experiences, because she has a wealth of life experiences. Another time, she told me that she would love to go to the park for a walk. She hadn't been out for a long time, so I accompanied her to the park. She was very happy and thanked me for bringing her here. She told me that she felt like I was like family to her. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2011. I remember that morning was very cold and there was a dampness in the air. When I received the news, I was very sad. When I arrived at her house, her son told me that she had passed away a few days before. I felt very sad, for I felt like I had lost a loved one. Jesus looked at me with a smile and a lot of affirmation and love in his eyes. He said to me, "You have done well, my son. Your kindness has infected many people and given them hope and strength." I also felt overwhelmed with happiness after hearing his words. During my conversation with Jesus, I asked him many questions about life. He patiently answered each of my questions and brought me a deeper understanding and insight. He also told me to treat everyone, no matter who they are, with love and kindness. I felt a deep connection with Jesus, and his words have impacted my life. I feel like my life has become more meaningful. I know I can bring hope and strength to others. Jesus jokingly said, "Aren't you ever going to get married again in your life?" I was a little surprised. I hadn't told him about my emotional state. I asked him, "How did you know?" Jesus smiled at me, and through his eyes, I felt his caring. I smiled along with him. Then I asked, "Are you kidding?" He replied, "No, I am serious. How can you be such a nice person and let yourself be alone all the time? Your children have grown up, and it's time to think about your own love life." I sighed and said, "I'm really afraid of getting hurt. I've been through a very painful relationship before, and it has made me afraid to believe in love again." Jesus listened quietly, then slowly said, "I know you've been hurt, but you can't let your past experiences stop you from finding true love. You need to give someone else a chance, and believe me, you will meet someone who deserves your love." I asked with some hesitation, "But how do I know if this person is worthy of my love?" Jesus said, "You have to trust your heart. When you are with this person, you will feel a special feeling. You will feel love and happiness in your heart." I took a deep breath and then said, "Thank you, I will try." Jesus smiled and said, "Yes, my child. Believe me, you will find your true love." Jesus also showed me a life scene. In the scene, I was much older and my son was married and had children of his own. I thought I would never have a partner again, but then I saw a man by my side. He seemed very gentle and considerate. Jesus told me that this man was a gift he had prepared for me. Jesus went on to say that this man would be my future soulmate and that we would walk the journey of life together. I said to Jesus, Thank you for giving me such a wonderful future, and I will cherish this gift. Jesus smiled at me and said, I am always there for you, watching you grow and progress. Remember, I will always be there for you. Jesus flew me toward the tunnel, gradually moving away from that wonderful place. I felt a little sad. But I knew I had to return to earth to continue my life. Jesus said to me, go back to earth and continue to spread love and hope. I will always be with you. Suddenly, I felt my body become heavy again and my vision became blurry. When I opened my eyes again, I found that I had returned to the real world. The doctor quickly walked into my room and told me how lucky I was. My 2 stents had completely collapsed and the hospital had reoperated on me. Every time I talk about it, people around me always say how lucky I am. I just want to tell them it wasn't luck, because God was always there for me. A year later, I really met that man. The man and I met at a friend's party. I didn't think at the time that this man would become my current husband. He was a very interesting and intelligent man. After that, we added each other's contact information. 2 months later, we started our first date. We spent many happy hours together. One evening, he took me to the beach. We were sitting on the beach, listening to the sound of the waves and the distant cries of seagulls, when he suddenly confessed his love to me. He said that he had always liked me and wished to be with me. I was very happy and expressed the same feeling. Our relationship period was very sweet and we experienced many good moments and some setbacks. However, we always encouraged each other. A year later, he proposed to me. He took me to a beautiful island in the sea. He opened a small box and inside was a glowing ring. He said to me, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, will you marry me? I said, of course, I will marry you. He helped me put on the ring and then we embraced each other. We chose a beautiful church as our wedding venue. We invited our friends and family to witness our happy moment. Now, I have been married to him for almost 10 years. We have gone through many challenges together, but our relationship has been stable. I thank God for everything He has given me. Back in September 2013, my husband and I got married. For the first year of our marriage, we were both very happy and joyful. As time went by, the arguments between us became more and more frequent. At one point, I overheard that he was gambling. He didn't deny his behavior and admitted that he owed a lot of money outside. At that time, I still wanted to give him a chance, but he still cheated on me. 3 months later, I received a collection call from my bank. I was shocked and disappointed and I knew he was continuing to gamble. He even took out a mortgage on our house. These things hurt me a lot and left me feeling very disappointed and miserable. I couldn't believe he would do this, and I felt betrayed. Later, when he knelt in front of me and asked me to forgive him, I felt very conflicted. I wasn't sure if he would really change. I told him that I needed some time to think about this. I needed to leave him for a while, to give me some space and time. He acted disappointed when he heard my decision. He continued to ask me to give him a chance, and he assured me that he would change and would try to make up for his mistake. It wasn't easy to leave him for a while, but I knew it was the right decision. Finally, I told him that I wanted him to take his problems seriously. I wanted him to be a better person and to take responsibility for his actions. Later, I moved to a new apartment and started a life of my own. Although I still felt pain and disappointment, I also gradually found hope and confidence. Although the experience took a toll on me, I also learned a lot from it. I learned how to protect myself. After 3 months, I knew I had to face reality, and I asked my husband for a formal divorce. I decided to work out our financial issues so we could both end the marriage and start a new life as soon as possible. One day, I made an appointment with both my husband and my attorney at home. We discussed in depth the debts and assets involved in our marriage and decided how to proceed with an agreed distribution. I felt that this process was painful because it meant that I had to deal with this failed marriage. My attorney provided me with a lot of help and support during this process to ensure that we reached a fair agreement. Eventually, we signed the divorce agreement. We decided to go through the final divorce the following week. That night, as I was getting ready to wash up and go to bed, I heard someone walk in. I raised my guard, and it turned out to be my husband. I asked him why he had a key to my house, and he didn't answer me. He just stood there silently. I started to get a little scared. I didn't know why he was in my house at this time. I knew he wanted the money on me because he knew I had some money on me. He had mentioned it once before, but I had turned it down. He told me that he needed the money to pay his bills, but I would not trust him again. I knew that he would continue to gamble when he had the money, and that would only worsen our problems. I looked at him and my mood started to get bad. This man used to be the closest person to me, but now he had become a completely different person. This made me very sad. I told him that I would not give him any more money. I couldn't let him ruin my life anymore. He started to assure me that he would change. But I knew that it was too late and I couldn't trust him anymore. After I rejected him, he started to get emotional. He seemed very angry. I began to pray in my heart, God, I need your help. He kept apologizing while he was still trying to get me to borrow money. I wanted to call the police. When he wasn't looking, I ran into the bedroom. I was about to unlock the door when he forced his way into the bedroom. He was screaming at me. It felt like his soul had been taken over by the devil. He picked up the ashtray on the table and smashed it on my head. He yelled out of his mouth, I'm going to kill you. I fell to the floor. I was about to get up and run away when he grabbed me again. Once again, he smashed the ashtray on my head. I had no more strength to resist. My eyes were getting blurry and the sounds around me were getting smaller and smaller. Suddenly, I felt like I was entering a tunnel. I knew that my prayers had been answered. I was ready to receive God's love and guidance. Then a pure light surrounded me and made me feel endlessly loved. The feeling was so real that I felt like I was in the arms of God. I can't describe my current environment in words. God wrapped me with His love. Suddenly, my soul began to move quickly. I appeared in a peaceful environment, which was filled with divine aura. It was a beautiful place. I felt my soul was purified and I no longer had pain and worries. A white gate appeared in front of me and I knew this was where I was going to be. I walked through the gate and was greeted by a beautiful angel. She smiled at me and then led me to a square. I watched as many angels gathered around the square, all of them full of joy and enthusiasm. I noticed that some angels were dancing and others were talking to each other. Their energy filled the whole square and made me feel overwhelmed and happy. The angels told me that this is the welcome square in heaven. Whenever a new soul arrives here, the angels hold a great welcoming ceremony. This square is a place of love where every soul can receive God's mercy and blessing. I looked at the angels around me, and they were all so beautiful. They emanated a pure light from their bodies that made me feel overwhelmingly warm. Each newly arrived soul was dressed in a white robe. The angels told me that this was the traditional dress of heaven, representing the purity and immaculate nature of our souls. Then, these souls walked towards a beautiful fountain. The angel sprinkled the water from the fountain on their bodies. A dazzling light began to shine around them. Then the angels began to play beautiful songs, and their voices floated throughout the square. In the midst of the beautiful songs, these souls began to dance. I could feel their excitement and joy, and they seemed to have completely integrated into this wonderful world. After the welcome ceremony, the angels began to lead these souls into their future living quarters. I could see that there were many different living areas in heaven, and each soul could choose a place that suited them to start their new life. There was a beautiful garden with all kinds of flowers and trees. Souls can relax here and immerse themselves in the beauty of nature. In the center of the garden, there is a small lake with very clear water. Each soul can enjoy their personal time here alone. I also saw a dense urban community where people interact and learn. The buildings are very distinctive. They can make new friends here. Finally, I saw a small town by the sea. There are white sandy beaches and blue water. You can enjoy the sunshine here. There are also many special handicrafts in the town. Each living site has a unique charm. The souls can choose a place that suits their interests and preferences. When I was ready to explore other areas, the angel beside me told me that there were some places I could not go right now. When I was confused, the angel smiled and said to me, "You can go see the gardens here, and you can also go for a walk by the river." Then, we walked to a river. The water was so clear that I could see every stone at the bottom of the river. On the bank of the river, I saw a lot of people talking. They looked so happy, without any worries or pain. Led by the angel, we came to a huge library with countless books inside. The angel told me that all the history of human past was recorded here. In every corner of heaven, I could feel the endless peace and happiness. The angel took me to another building. She told me that this was the place that belonged to God. Curious, I asked the angel if I could go in now. The angel smiled and told me, "Your time has not yet come, and it is time to take you back. Your mission is not yet complete." Although a little lost, I knew it was God's will and I should obey his arrangement. The angel guided me back into my body and I felt my breath and heartbeat again. When I opened my eyes, I felt a strong pain. I saw my husband sitting on the floor, his hands were covered with blood, and his body was trembling. He cried and said to me, "Please forgive me, what have I done? What have I done?" He kept repeating this phrase. Looking at him like this, my heart was also filled with confusion. I now had no strength to speak, and could only look at him silently. Suddenly, he knelt down and begged me not to call the police. His tone was full of helplessness and fear. Finally, he helped me call the emergency number. When I was taken to the hospital, I immediately reported the incident to the police. My husband was arrested for malicious wounding. The divorce proceedings were quickly completed and I felt like I was out of a nightmare. I no longer felt scared because I knew I could be strong and face any difficulties in my life. Later, I joined a charitable organization that provides support and assistance to those who are victims of domestic violence. These efforts made me feel meaningful and made me appreciate what I had even more. I didn't know why my ex-husband had stopped his violent behavior. 8 years later, I got my answer. That day, I received a phone call from a stranger. The man's voice sounded both strange and familiar. It turned out to be my ex-husband, who had found my contact information. He started apologizing to me over and over, asking me to forgive him and saying that he didn't want to go to hell when he died. I was shocked when this call came in. He began to recount the scene from that night. He was holding an ashtray and wanted to continue bashing me over the head. Suddenly, he felt an invisible force that stopped him. He saw a dazzling light, and then a man dressed in white appeared before him. He thought it was God incarnate. This person asked him, "Are you sure you want to kill your wife?" He was feeling as if he had been electrocuted, and his whole body was stunned. He didn't know how to answer. The man in white said, "Do you want to be forgiven by God? Then go and save your wife." He realized he was doing something wrong and stopped his violent behavior. He called the hospital. I listened to the voice on the other end of the phone, and it was like I was back to that night. I told my ex-husband that I forgave him and wished him a happy life. Although the call brought back memories of that horrible experience, it also showed me some of the warmth and humanity. I hope he will continue to change and become a better person.